Hi everyone, in this video we are going to discuss global water issues, and we're going to focus primarily on global water issues because here in the United States we are unbelievably spoiled. And let me give you a frame of reference here. So in the United States it costs us about $2 to get about 1,000 gallons of water. So compared to almost everywhere else on the globe, our water is essentially free. And so what we need to think about and what we need to kind of come from a place of and understand is that here in the US, we are spoiled. Very, very, very spoiled when it comes to water. And so we need to start at that standpoint in order to understand the issues that are happening in the rest of the globe. And so I have three major issues that I want to point out, and so you are going to be accountable for these, so make sure you know all three of these. The first one is that we've already discussed, is that we're having global climate change. And so now, before, we were talking about this primarily in the context of combustion or the production of carbon dioxide and how that's related to our planet. But now we want to look at this through the lens of a water situation, okay, in the context of water. So when we look at global climate change, we have two big issues that we've discussed before. And the first one is that we know as we do combustion and we create carbon dioxide and release it into our planet, when it is into our atmosphere, the temperature of our planet increases. And so what that means is that as the temperature increases, our glaciers start to melt. So our glaciers are melting. And so what that means is that our already limited source of fresh water is melting directly into our salt water. And so we're mixing that up. We only have 3% of our water here on this planet is our fresh water. And if our glaciers are melting, we're just very rapidly getting rid of that and making that number even smaller than 3%. The second thing is that we are definitely experiencing more intense storms. And so think about the tsunamis and cyclones and hurricanes and even the flooding that's occurring. So what's happening is our water is moving. It's going to different places than it used to be in. A cyclone or a tsunami or even a flood, we know that our water is unnaturally moving to different places. So global climate change is definitely messing up our water cycles, okay? So it's a big issue. We can't gloss over that. The second thing is that we need to think about the inefficiencies. And there's two major ones that I want to point out. And the first one is kind of the most obvious one, is that when we pump water from our aquifers, we are usually doing this faster than they recharge. And so aquifers are something that are constantly having a supply of fresh water. It's constantly being recharged or replenished. But if we pump out the water faster than it can come back in, we automatically dry up a well and we're running out of water. So when we're doing this in an inefficient manner, it is really, really bad. We should be to a point where we're pumping out the water as fast as it's coming back in. So it's in this beautiful cycle, so we never have a net negative of our water in these aquifers. The second thing I want to point out is that some places are really using inefficient technology, and some people are actually pumping water in what are called open pipes. And so what that means is they're trying to go to a freshwater source, use a pipe to transport the water, to bring it to a community that is in desperate need of water, but they're doing this inefficiently. In an open pipe, in a hot area or hot location, the water is going to evaporate. So instead of moving 100% of water from the section A to section B, we are now moving 97% or maybe 50%, depending on the temperature, the time of day, and how much water is actually moving there. So it's a big, big issue. And another inefficiency that I want to point out, and it's easier to actually look at pictures here, is this is an example of the Aral Sea. And so the first picture I have here was taken in about 1973. And so what happened was before this picture was even taken, about in the 1960s, the former Soviet Union was actually taking the freshwater supply, because this is a freshwater sea. And so they're actually rerouting the water that goes to actually replenish the sea. The Soviet Union took that water using canals and they moved it to try to grow cotton. And if you recall, a cotton t-shirt requires something like 2,500 liters of water. So cotton requires a ton of water. It's so bad. But so what the Soviet Union did is they rerouted this water. And so very slowly over the course of 30 years, we basically were able to watch the sea get smaller and smaller and smaller. So this first picture is in 1973, right after they started moving the water. The second one is in 1987, and so as you can see, the lake is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, the sea, excuse me. The third picture I have here is in 1999. And so for this one, you can see clearly from 87 to 99, that sea has just whoosh, shrunk, dried up so much. And then this last picture is in 2009, where the only water that remains are saltwater sections of it. So all that water you see is all salt water. So basically, from the 1960s all the way to 2009, we have completely dried up one of our biggest sources of fresh water. Before this happened, before we started doing this, the Aral Sea was actually the fourth largest fresh inland water source. The fourth largest, and we dried it up. It's gone. It's completely gone. It's a big, big, big issue. All right, can't talk about that anymore. Moving on, number 3, contamination is a huge issue when it comes to global water problems. And the one thing I want to point out here is more of a statistic than a contamination issue, but 1 billion people, 1 billion people out of the 7 billion people on this planet, 1 billion people lack safe drinking water. It's bad, guys. It's bad. In the US, we pay $2 for 1,000 gallons of water, and 1 billion people don't have anything. They don't have any water that they can drink. They just don't have it. And so they have to use all these crazy systems to try to filter it. You've got all these different wonderful organizations trying to help people out, but there are still, no matter how you calculate it, 1 billion people that do not have safe drinking water. Think about that. Honestly, think about it for a second. It's sad. It's really bad. We are very, very spoiled here. All right, the second thing I want to point out in terms of contamination is something that people don't think about, like, ever. And one of them is cosmetics. So if you're in your shower and you're wiping the makeup off, where does it go? It goes down the drain and you automatically contaminate fresh water, just like that. Same thing if you have lotions on. Perfume or cologne is a big one. And then another one, I'm going to kind of loop in here, but it doesn't obviously go with this, are drugs. People flush drugs down the toilet all the time. If they think the cops are knocking on their door, they're going to empty their drugs and dump them in the water. That's the first thing to do. It's the fastest way and the safest way to get the drugs out of your house before you get caught. And so in our drinking water, we have cosmetics, we have lotions, we have all those micro beads that you use in your exfoliating face wash. Those don't dissolve at all. They're there forever. They're never going to come out of our system. And then we have drugs on top of it. So all of these things are contaminating water, and you're probably guilty of one or two of them. Let's hopefully focus on the cosmetic aspect. So this is something you just need to be cognizant of. And the last one is poop. It's poop. We poop in the bathroom every single day. And when you go to the bathroom, you contaminate your water. It's a big issue, but there's nothing you can do about it because everybody poops, and so you have to contaminate your water. So what's really neat is that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is coming up with this challenge. It's called Reinvent the Toilet. I think you saw a couple videos on it previously, but if you want to know more about it, please look it up. It's really, really a cool challenge, and I just love when nerds get together. It's awesome. All right, I'm going to leave you with one thing here. Is water free? And this is for everybody except for the United States. Go. Did you get an answer? Hopefully you did, and I think it was pretty straightforward, but maybe it wasn't. Is water free? No, absolutely not. We are spoiled here in the United States. For $2, we get 1,000 gallons of water, which is just crazy. Everywhere else in the world, it is not that way. So please, 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 be aware of this and do what you can. Do your part and help everybody have safe water. All right, take care, guys.